Welcome to the Business Resilience DECODED podcast, brought to you by Asfalis Advisors and the Disaster Recovery Journal. Crisis management in today's world is ever-changing, and this podcast is our commitment to help you navigate successful outcomes for any crisis you may face. I'm your host, Vanessa Mathews. I specialize in providing insights and solutions for crisis, continuity, and resilience across industries from real estate and healthcare to terrorism in the airline and transportation worlds. No matter what industry you're in, this podcast will provide you the tools to build resilience in your organization. Welcome back to another episode of the Business Resilience DECODED podcast. Today, I'm excited because guess what? John Seals is joining me. What's up, John?
Hey, how are you?
Doing good. So today is the first episode that we're recording post the DRJ conference, hence the title, the DRJ Fall 22 Conference Recap from Phoenix. So, John, what was your time like in Phoenix at this last conference?
It was great. It's really good to see everyone. And like I said last time at the last conference, it seemed like a regular conference. The excitement was there. It was palpable. The only difference was that, instead of 1,000 people, there were 600 and something people. So we're getting there. We had an 11% increase in attendance. So we're getting back to some pre-COVID times, but it's going to take a while.
Yeah. No, I agree. I thought it was great. It was great attendance. I felt like the energy was there. People were definitely excited to be back in person again. For the people who may not have made it back in the spring, I think they were definitely able to make it for the fall. I also appreciated meeting some of the attendees, and they were saying, yeah, I'm planning on being there in the spring and presenting another session topic. So the fact that companies are paying for that back-to-back professional development and training, I think is awesome. It was great. Besides the heat, it was awesome.
Yeah, it's going to take a while for companies to get their budgets back into a normal perspective. But it was great to have a Business Resilience DECODED podcast booth and have some people stop by and talk to us about the podcast. What did you hear from your cohort at the podcast booth?
Well, so that's the first thing. I was so excited to have a booth. Like when I came downstairs and I saw our podcast banner, I fanned out on myself. I was like, wow, we had a freaking whole banner in here. That was awesome. The Asfalis team, we brought in Eric from our group to really help man the booth and support John. And one, I thought it was great because it was his first time at a conference for our team. It was his first time meeting DRJ as a customer and as a partner. And thirdly, I thought it was really important because I typically don't get to stay in the exhibit hall long. And it was really great to have somebody there that was dedicated to listening and to asking questions. So he said, like, what's my objective? And I said, smile and just talk to people. That's it. We want to learn. We want to get some insight. How did they find us? Who are the subscribers? Can we find any more people who may want to be a guest on the podcast? And I also thought it was a great opportunity to meet more people who drive some of the sponsorships for the podcast. Right. So shameless plug, whether you're a higher education institution, a financial services bank, most of you have something that you need to market to the business resilience, crisis management, or continuity profession. My recommendation for you is to consider being a sponsor for the podcast. Fusion Risk Management is your North Star for operational resilience. The Fusion Framework System provides a foundation that enables you to understand how your business works, how it breaks, and how to put it back together again, which allows you to make data-driven decisions so you can anticipate, prepare, respond, and learn through business disruptions and major crisis events. Head to the link in our show notes to request a demo today. Fusion Risk Management, building a more resilient world together. I mean, as you all know, we've grown from 18,000 to 33,000 plus and counting. We just picked up, I think, over 3% listenership in Germany and some other countries. And so it definitely seems like we're doing the right things. And I would say that it was very helpful for me to know that we are doing the right thing, because 52 episodes means 52 hours that we spend together and a lot of prep time before that and after that. And the number one thing that we care about is this providing value and are you getting something out of it? And so I was at a line infusion at their dinner, and one of their customers came up to me from a chocolate company and shared with me that she listens to our podcast. And it was the guests, it's the short episodes, it's the personality of the podcast host, and it's the content that keeps her coming back every week. And it was just super helpful to hear that. Dr. Bernard Jones gave us major shout outs. He also did a great presentation. He's speaking and doing a webinar, I think actually next week, from his presentation at DRJ, but he also shared this podcast has never been done. And also from a diversity perspective, our industry struggles with that. And so he's been in the game a lot longer than I have. And his experiences growing up and being in the industry, there hasn't been a brand or a product, if you will, for what Business Resilience Decoded is providing. But I also think it's the real conversations that we're having, and we're not afraid to touch equity, inclusion, diversity, and we're going to keep on talking about it until we see changes. So it was really cool. I felt like we're doing great things and we're not wasting time.
I think I heard a lot of people that they really enjoyed the fact that we do have a wide variety of guests and we cover several different topics. You know, I think it was good to hear people say things like you need to hold some of these guests to the fire and get them off their prepared message and try to get them to just be. And I think that's why it's always good when before the show, Vanessa usually tells them, you know, these are the questions we're going to ask, but I might slip something else in there if something touches a nerve. And so those are the times when we get, you know, you get candid answers. Yeah. And that's best for everyone.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely be taking in one of our guests who gave us some great insights. We'll be taking that insight and some of that feedback and figuring out how to do that. So question for you, back to the conference. What were some topics or speakers that you felt like were thought-provoking? I can start. Definitely loved the presentation by Sarah from Alert Media. She had a lot of data and stats on the current risk horizon. She definitely validated what substantial information, and I felt like it was needed because a lot of people that I met were saying, I've been in the industry for 25 plus years. I have a mature program. I need what's next. What should I be thinking about? And she definitely helped with that. I also loved Shane Mathews and Scott Baldwin's presentation. They compared a business to a business continuity program, and they talked about branding. They talked about culture. They talked about communication. I felt like that was awesome. Like I mentioned, Dr. Bernard Jones did a presentation on metrics and data. I thought that was amazing. So John, I don't know if there was any ones that, I know you don't get to sit in all of them, but if somebody said something to you about some of the topics.
The first one that I was thinking of when you mentioned Shane's session, of course, there was a situation on social media where he had forgot his suit and his wife was delivering him his suit. And so there was whether or not he was going to get the suit in time. So Leslie had said something about it blowing up on social media. And I said, oh, James Green is the one who started this, wasn't he? James Green is the one who got up there and started talking about that. And she said, yeah, it was. And I said, oh, yeah, I knew that. Yeah. So if you want to get on LinkedIn and check out the situation with the suit, that was great.
Yeah, go to #DRJ Fall.
Yeah. But yeah, I heard some really great comments about the panel sessions. I had a speaker come up to me and said she is changing her session for the next time, and she wants to have it more like the panel that she just watched. She said that one was so great.
I think it might have been the one with Damien from Deloitte and Michelle. Yeah. And yes. I think they talked about the supply chain.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that was it.
All right. So topics and trends. Clearly the supply chain, I believe, is still going to be a topic of mind. And it's also interesting that our president of the United States has been able to get this under control with the rail strike. Just something like that could completely stop everything that's happening in this world. And we depend on rail, I believe, much more than what we think we do. So for me, that stems to not only supply chain, but it's still back to people. I definitely believe that a trend continuing to move forward is managing the next generation. And I actually was at a workshop yesterday, my first day back home. And what the speaker talked about was you have this current generation, which is probably a mix of millennials, Gen Xers, and a few baby boomers. And specifically, millennials are in their first experiences of training and leading teams. However, the teams of people who they are leading are currently your most vulnerable people. You probably have millennials who are leading Gen Z, who are leading other millennials, who are leading Gen Xers, and who are leading baby boomers. And in this time frame of quiet quitting, great resignation, whatever you want to call it, that's a lot of vulnerability, right? And so I think the big thing is we need to be focusing on leadership and development. I also thought that a theme that I saw constantly through the conference, whether it was through that micro simulation or some of the other panels that we saw, is a lot of people within the industry are still very tactical in the approach. We don't approach things strategically, and it's a constant conversation. I did a 2.5-hour workshop on the business case for doing a ransomware exercise with business and technology teams. And it was on Sunday. It was a great presentation, lots of engagement. And one of the things that we uncovered in that workshop is one of the attendees said, oftentimes we don't tell executives the truth. We don't tell them that the baby's really ugly and the pig's really not okay. And they then believe that everything's fine. And maybe that's why we're not getting the buy-in, the support, the things that we need, et cetera. I think the third trend that I've seen is definitely in that cybersecurity space. It's continuing to happen, and organizations are continuing to get exposed. And so I just think that the constant breaking down of silos between business continuity, crisis management, cybersecurity, et cetera, is going to be key as we move in. But that's my perspective from a technical standpoint. You might have something different, John.
Yeah, I heard that a lot too. I think over the past few years, we've had a lot on the conversations where people have said, my company purchased a product from a vendor, and now we have all of our DR and cybersecurity solved. And it doesn't always work that way. You still have to have the people, and you still have to have the right system. And of course, there's always this cat and mouse game with hackers and ransomware and everything else. So people try to get in there and do just crazy things. But you mentioned with the millennials and Gen Z and baby boomers and such, another session that I really enjoyed this time was the mentor session. It was kind of an introduction to our free DRJ mentor program. David Halford and Peter Laz talked a little bit about mentoring, and then gave a little bit of a presentation about the mentor program. And quick plug, you can find that information on the DRJ website. It's free. It's a great matching program where you can find a mentor and a mentee. And if you're interested in either side, we're happy to be the conduit for those new partnerships. But next conference, we are going to have a session with Catherine Whitaker from Nike, and she is going to have a game show that pits younger professionals against older professionals, and they will talk about some items in the world of business continuity and disaster recovery and resilience in general, and then we'll talk about how that affects the DRJ mentor program.
Well, that's exciting. Well, the other great thing is that currently the call for papers is open until the 14th, I believe, of October. And I think that's another thing that constantly came up was diversity and inclusion. And what I appreciated about this conference is every single sponsor communicated that it's time. It's time. It's time. So let's see some change. Let's see something different. So the DRJ Spring 23 conference will be in Orlando, Florida, March 12th through the 15th. And you should be able to register now. The links will be in our show notes. And thanks for tuning in to another episode. Thank you for listening to the Business Resilience Decoded podcast, brought to you by Asfalis Advisors and Disaster Recovery Journal. Make sure you check out the show notes for this episode to see all the upcoming events, programs, and ways we can support you. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, leave us a review, and share it with a friend. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.